Hey everyone, so this is Marduk's Musing. This is me, Meten, and Dorje. We've been doing these
Hey
for
guys.
a while. And today we're going to do Jupiter's entry into Cancer. And we're going to talk about that on the mundane scene, on the personal, and maybe go through the houses if we have time. Maybe touch on some geopolitical issues. We'll see. And it's going to be there for about a year, starting what, in a week now? Yeah, in a week. And it'll be exciting. It'll be amazing. Jupiter's exalted in Cancer, and we'll give you guys a scoop. Dorje, start us off, man. Start us off.
Oh yeah, June 10th. June 10th is gonna just like squeeze itself into Cancer. But I mean Jupiter's a great benefic. And I'm just seeing a lot of astrologers, good astrologers, internet astrologers, Instagram astrologers, YouTube astrologers, TikTok astrologers, Facebook astrologers, Twitter astrologers, Blue Sky astrologers, like all the astrologers, and they're all like, "Yes, the goodness, Jupiter in Cancer, it's coming." And one thing you'll notice, or one thing I notice, is whenever like a major slow-moving planet shifts signs, then everybody's always like, "Oh, thank God, it was so horrible in that other sign.
That's what I thought.
Now things are going to be better." And that lasts for about a week until like they're like, "Oh, everything's crappy, and it's because this planet's in this sign." So for right now, we're all like, "Yes, Jupiter's leaving Gemini. Things are going to get better." But in a week or two, people will be like, "Oh man, this is why it's crappy to have
Yo, hold
Jupiter
on,
in
hold on. Let me have fun
Cancer."
with that. Let me have fun with that. Intro for your 2 seconds. Yeah, but Jupiter is actually in detriment in Gemini, where it's been
Yes, it is.
for
Yes,
the
it is.
past
Yeah.
year, and it's actually exalted in Cancer. So unfolded and continue unfolding it.
Well, no, I mean that's it. And that's why people are like, I'm so over Jupiter and Gemini because like, it's in detriment. Why is it in detriment? Jupiter is a planet of faith, right? And Gemini is the planet of the intellect. And the intellect and faith are clashing. So
Mhm.
there's this kind of like the soul doesn't know whether it's going to try to make a reason out of this and try to think its way out of this, or whether it's just going to like trust the situation. I mean, I'd say that's like a part of a deep level reason why there's just this discomfort with Jupiter and Gemini. But also, Gemini is a didactic. It's the polar opposites. It's the wokeism versus MAGA in the US. It's the Ukraine versus Russia. It's this kind of like it's these polar things battling for who is good, who is virtuous, who is right. And then, everybody's just caught like a ping pong between these two sides. And Jupiter doesn't like, set out boundaries. It's like it lets everybody kind of expand their intention. So like Jupiter and Gemini has been a little bit like hard. I mean,
But when
I
we
think.
have, so sorry. I just want to intercede. I'm in that mood today, I guess. But when you have a planet in a detrimental sign, you look for resolve in the polarity. So the polarity of Jupiter and Gemini would be Sagittarius.
Sure, yeah,
And
yeah, yep.
Sagittarius is Jupiter ruled. So wouldn't the resolve for a recent polarity be kind of Sag, adventurous type energy?
Well, I look at that as that you reconcile polar opposites through the practice of philosophy, which is Sagittarius and Jupiter. So it is this kind of like, okay, well, like if you think about a Socratic dialogue, right? A Socratic dialogue is, well, let's explore this idea until we exhaust it. Then we'll explore this idea until we exhaust it. And at some point, through exhausting all of these different ideas, we'll come to the truth. And so that is to me kind of like, well, that is the Jupiter Gemini. It's like experiencing these different polarities and experiencing them to the max until one exhausts oneself. But it's exhausting. I think everybody's exhausted. Jupiter and Gemini is an air sign. And so then there's this kind of like exhaustion with like prices going up that happened. The inflation experience of Jupiter and Gemini. Now I'm going to say that, and then I'm going to like move over to Jupiter and Cancer. So Jupiter expands whatever it touches and wherever it is. And food prices, The moon, Cancer is the food, how you nurture yourself. I would not be surprised if there wasn't dramatic food inflation as part of Jupiter and Cancer, which nobody's going to like. So when people are like, "Oh, Jupiter's all positive," well, no, Jupiter is not necessarily positive. Jupiter is expansive. So it's going to expand where it is, and so then that really kind of like makes this subtlety to the doctrine of rulerships, the doctrine of dignities. People are like, oh, this planet is good here. Good for what and good for who?
Mm.
Is becomes a real question. And within our own charts, that keys into which house it falls in and what it's aspecting within that house.
And the tension between where the Aries house is in square to where we have Cancer.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Because that Aries
Yeah.
vortex is so strong, and it's where we're all creating something new in our life, and where that tension is going to lie between those two, that inner kind of tension that it's provoking and pushing us to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah. And so as Jupiter's entering Cancer, Jupiter is squaring Saturn, and then it's going to square Neptune. Bam, bam, one right after another in the next couple of weeks. And then this is the third square of the Jupiter-Saturn square. It's a resolution of the square that started last late summer, early fall, in terms of like, well, these contrary principles between conservatism and expansionism. And here we are, expansionism's about to win. This like kind of like opening up into possibility is going to win after this kind of like everything's being held back. Everything's being held back. I think that's a little bit, dangerous, perhaps. It's a little bit dangerous in terms of like, well, like the ice border stuff. And maybe it's a little bit dangerous to like just kind of like, let people run around in masks and pick people up off the street. Maybe that's a little bit dangerous. Maybe that's going to open up though. I don't think we're going to get the sense of like a containment. Like things are going to become uncontained over this year with Jupiter and Cancer because Jupiter exalted is going to expand. Now, ideally, it's expanding the principle of nurturing. That's Cancer, right? It's expanding the principle of humanism and heart. But if you think about Cancer as a sign, Cancers in general are also very protective. They're very conscious of their boundaries. Cancers are, and which is kind of they sit in this midpoint between Pisces as a water sign, which is completely unconscious of boundaries, and Scorpio as a water sign, which is conscious of boundaries, but in a way that's protective of theirs and destructive of yours. And Cancer is just like, no, we have our boundaries, right? So that principle of what are my boundaries is going to be like really expanding on a societal level, which makes sense because Saturn is in Aries, and Saturn in Aries is moving out of Pisces and I think we talked about this in the last episode of Marduk's Muse, is what is the boundaries of the collective versus what is the boundaries of the individual, which is Saturn and Aries. We're moving into what are the boundaries of the individual. Jupiter squaring the Neptune in Aries is it's a lot of illusion there for a little bit. It's a lot of illusion about what am I capable of? Who am I? And what am I able to do myself? And I'm already seeing that, I'm seeing some people go through that like over expecting what the possibility is. And this, I think, is part of this like movement towards um, over expansion. When Jupiter becomes really active, you have to be careful not to over expand, but to expand consciously in what you're doing. So you don't overextend yourself. Like take advantage of the opportunities that Jupiter and Cancer might bring you because it will. It will bring you opportunities to expand, but it will do so in a way that you can easily expand beyond what you're comfortable with. You can so to say bite off more than you can chew, or if you think about it, you could eat more than you can digest. That I think that's a really good kind of like way of relating to that Jupiter square Saturn Neptune is like be careful you don't eat more than you can digest. You know, look for the opportunities and then proceed slowly with them when they arise. And in that way, you're using the square between Jupiter and Saturn, which is going to last all the way through July in a very, very healthy way. What do you think?
As I take that in, I was calculating the sense of how to negotiate our path through such conscious awareness because I'm always bringing up these days how the mind cannot really contain the day. We attempt to organize our day. We attempt to do the things that we need to do, and then we come to a wall, and then with that wall, we have to assess, okay, why is this not working? Should I push it through? Should I step back and reflect or reset and see if maybe I'm going too far? Maybe I've eaten too much, put too much on my plate, and maybe it's true I can't digest it. So maybe it is time to pause. So my sense of it is we'll get the pause as we always do. We get the pauses with the Mercury retrogrades. And July is, July begins the next Mercury retrograde. So I feel like this month is really exciting and it's a lot of energy of expansion that's coming about with this Cancer ingress. And I think at the same time, like you said, what's being expanded to be able to look at that and kind of observe and just be aware of mastering what we're doing in such a way as you described and not getting lost, dissolved in this expansiveness, but realizing, like you said, that wait a second, I'm doing this over here. How do I fit in with this collective? And not, how do I not lose myself? How do I keep to my goals? How do I not overextend myself? I want to do this, but or this is going on over here, so I'm going to really have to think about this because my resources are being limited in this area. So how can I? So I think there's a lot of that, and then we'll have that moment of reflection in July, and also in, I think it's November, December when the next retrograde comes. Those will be the moments of reflection because this Jupiter ingress is gonna it's already there. There's a lot of extremes, like you said, and that's what the energy is. The tension is just it's gonna be swings. I feel like swings, extremes, where
Hmm. Hmm.
all of a sudden, individually, we're able to push things forth. Aries in Saturn and Aries. Being the lone pioneer. I'm gonna push it forth my way and then we'll have some momentum and some progress and then Jupiter's going to come in and say no, we're taking this over. This is the collective energy. We're going to all do it this way. And Saturn is not exalted in Aries. It's in detriment. So there's a tension there. Who's going to win that battle? What is that inner tension? It's between the self and the collective, as you were already describing. And then with Neptune is like our vision is in sight. We've been prepping our vision. It's been in Pisces for so long. We've had this overexpansive vision. We're all clear. We know what we want to do. Now it's like, how are we going to do it? Now Neptune is in Aries. Okay, time to focus. Time to find that center of focus and how are we going to do this goal that we want to do? How are we going to make it real? So those I'm just, extrapolating on what you noted, but I think that's how it'll move forward.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'd love to key off of that. With the kind of like since Jupiter's still in Gemini, kind of like an agree and a disagree, like both simultaneously, like the two faces of Janus. I got one saying one thing
Yeah,
and the other saying
definitely.
the
Yeah.
other thing. So I really like that you brought up Mercury going retrograde because it's going to go retrograde. What is it? I think July 14th around then
Okay.
until August 10th. And that's going to be in the sign of Leo. So that is going to be like this, like everybody is going to like be able to tap into this energy if they're consciously working with their own minds and their mandala of the life around them of like, hey, let me pause and reflect. Is this working or not? this avenue which has suddenly opened up for me because Jupiter's moved into Cancer. Is it working or is it not? Pause and reflect, and then come back to that. You know, they kind of like the place where like the other side of Janice might be like, "Hey, I don't agree with what you just said," would be this kind of like Neptune and Aries. I don't think that creates any type of clarity. I think that creates a kind of like we're going to be in a place where people aren't really conscious of their energy. They're going to be running over other people. There's going to be like this crashing through the gates unconsciously. And I think we already see that. I think we've seen that through like the last 6 weeks. Already, this kind of like you get this idea and you just run with it. One of the things I do not like about Neptune and Aries is I believe it lends into fundamentalism. It lends into I have God on my side and therefore I can wage war on you. And because of my, spiritual, religious, philosophical belief. And so then there's like this holy warrior quality, and that I think, Jupiter and Cancer also promotes to some degree, because Jupiter and Cancer is like, I'm going to protect my family. Yeah, what's Cancer rules? What the Cancer is that sense of home, that sense of family. Cancer, Jupiter is like, okay, this is my tribe. These are my people. And so you've got like this like fighting spirit for my people. Worst comes to worst, that's kind of like promoting some genocidal quality. I'm not being very positive here. You know what? I'm going to park that. I'm going to be positive.
No, but
No,
let me intercede before you go to the positive. Let me just back that up because that's really important because people don't always talk about the kind of imperial nature of Jupiter. Like Jupiter
right.
can be
Yes. Yeah.
self-righteous, it could be arrogant,
Yeah.
it could be this is
Yeah.
the only way. And we know that these type of agendas are being pushed because there are like still to this day, even though we're moving away from the conservative structure of what it is to be, to be with a family and to just protect your own family and and all that. I'm not qualifying any of that. I'm saying we're moving away to a more collective perspective of humanity. And the
Hmm.
tribal
Hmm.
perspective is kind of falling aside.
Mm,
So interesting because what we're going to see and what we're witnessing is an extreme push towards the tribalism
hmm.
because it's
Hmm.
dying. And so
Yep.
because of its dying, the religious sentiment especially is being pushed to an extreme. It's pushed on top of us and we don't understand that just that in itself will provoke any type of cultish type groups or mentality into fervor. It doesn't even have to be a religion, just religious like self-righteous ideologies. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. Yep. Yep.
So I'm glad you
Yeah.
brought that up. I wanted to bring that up. I didn't know how. So thanks. That's
Yeah.
true.
No, I mean that's part of what's going on, and it's interesting because it reflects this phase into a very Aquarian period in humanity, which I feel like strongly is a phase into the age of Aquarius, which we're going through right now, which is the um, development of what is the individual human's path outside of the context of the tribal faith-based orientation of Pisces. Pisces was more the consciousness of the different faiths, and Aquarius is the science of the self. It opposed Leo. Leo being the spark of the self, and Aquarius being the science of the self, in a type of opposition between the two. So we're moving into this science of the self and being broken down into individuality. Something I read really recently that was really interesting, totally fantastic. Really kind of like got me thinking was how there's been this march of social media, right? From like okay, like we're all here having conversations on MySpace, and then it evolves into Facebook, and we're all like able to connect and talk to each other. And then it starts getting like siloed into like, well, you got Twitter, you got Instagram, you got like TikTok. And so there's a little bit of a siloing, and you've got your kind of like, those groups, those soul groups that are traveling with you. And then you hit Chat GPT, and suddenly it's just you and the computer. There's no group experience to it anymore. And I don't know if you played around with ChatGPT. Total blast. Like I had to design a nootropic stack for me, and I gave it my genetics, I gave it my weight, I gave it my age. It came back with this nootropic stack, and I tried it out. Totally brilliant. Like it absolutely great. Like it would have cost me 180 to $300 to go to the naturopath. It's like, but here I am, just me and the artificial intelligence talking. I have been completely siloed into my own individual experience. I've lost all connection with the humanistic group around me. And I am now jacked into the machine one on one, right? That's the danger of the age of Aquarius. You know, that's what it's pulling towards. It's pulling towards this like the individual is what matters. And Robert Zoller said, I think it was in the 1980s, he said, when we enter into the age of Aquarius, then being able to maintain family, community, friendship networks is going to be power. And the overlords, so to speak, the ruling elite, whether they're corporate or whether they're um, political or whether they're ancient family lines of lizard people or whether they're entities out there in different star systems
Egregores, maybe. Yeah.
that have astral tentacles in people feeding off of the
Right.
energy of what they're paying attention to. Like we can run with all kinds of myths, and one of the great beauties of being alive is they're all myths. You don't actually know a truth. There is no like just there, but we can run with all of those myths. Those myths are talking about like drawing your energy away from you into the collective or into their dynamic. And so one of the principles of Jupiter and Cancer, which I really love, is because the crab is like this protective shell, there is this quality to it over the next year where it is very possible for people to really settle into their own soul and the center of their own soul. And that's one of the things that I'm going to like emphasize in readings this year is like, how do you center into your soul? Because I think with Jupiter and Cancer, that is a very reachable energy for people. It's something that like there's a palpable quality of like, oh, this is the sign and the planet of the Hara of the centering into the strength of your own soul within your own experience of embodiment and not getting drawn out by the Neptune in Aries, or the Saturn in Aries, or the Uranus in Gemini, which when Uranus hits Gemini, it's going to be like information overload is going to be part of that Uranus and Gemini. You thought Jupiter and Gemini was information overload. Wait till you hit Uranus and Gemini. So I think that's one of the positive qualities there. And I mean, we could talk about like, well, Jupiter and Cancer, the expansion of wealth, the expansion of nurturing qualities. So from a tropical perspective, the Ayurvedic astrologers are much more sidereal oriented, so they don't think we're in a wealth expanding cycle yet because they don't think that Jupiter is going to hit Cancer for another 9 months.
Right.
Um, but for us tropical astrologers, we're like, oh, the expansion of wealth. The expansion of the exalted Jupiter is able to give to you and able to help you in that area of life that's ruled by Cancer, find enjoyment, right? which is really great. But I think like the deeper substrate is this is an opportune year for settling into your soul outside of religious dogma.
I love it. I love it. I love it so much. You don't even know. What you said centered upon a theme that I've been looking at for the last year with with again, Neptune in Aries and Saturn in Aries, because, Neptune is always the background show, right?
Hmm.
It's the movie that's playing that everyone's watching.
Yes,
So we
yes,
all
yep,
know, okay, we know this, we know the score, we know the plot, we know the characters, we know the plot device. We just know it so well, right? Neptune and
yes,
Pisces
yep,
was so clear. Everyone, let's help everyone, let's take care of everyone. It's, oh, if you're not helping someone, you're bad. You know what I mean? No sense of constructive upliftment or responsibility of a human character, or a person. So with Neptune going into Aries, we have to be careful of a new show, right? The new movie
hmm
that's coming out.
hmm
That's like, these are the bad guys. And this is the
yes, yep,
lone warrior good guy, right? Saturn and Aries. Or is the lone warrior the bad guy? And the grand forces of Neptune and Aries, the good, you know what I'm saying? It's another polarity, and it's another show where they want everyone to watch it. And when you're watching
yes,
something, you're not in your own body. When you're looking at a screen, your essence is distilled into the screen in front of you. And we gotta just not give any more power to this show outside of us.
yes, yeah. No, I'm so glad you said that. Like Jupiter and Cancer, take the year and try to separate from social media,
It's
you know,
happening.
as
People are
much as
talking
you
about it.
can.
People are doing it.
Yes,
People are like, no,
yes,
I need my break. I just did my 30-day, off of it, and I feel great, you know,
yep, yep,
because what's happening, we don't realize is that we're saturating ourselves with information, and then we cannot parcel it out into knowingness, because all we got is things to follow up on and read and
hmm
never
hmm
digest, take in,
hmm
but
yep,
never fully digest, and it never fully becomes a part of the self.
yep,
So I want to take a moment to go back to some books, get some books read, so that I can kind of go into that different energy. You know what I mean? Making sure
yes,
that
yes,
I'm separated from that sort of addictive quality, and that possible, as you noted, that possibility, that dangerous possibility of merging with those energies and frequencies. It's all right. It's great to master it, when we need it. You and I are mastering this in order to reach others, but
hmm
we don't want to merge. We don't want to merge our consciousness with it. We want our consciousness to remain individuated and connected and grounded
hmm
to the real world, whatever that is, the natural
yeah,
world.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, because Mario, that is the symbol of the crab. The crab is in the ocean, but it's got its shell, it's got its protection, it's got its individuality within that context, you know. So that is the Cancer, that is the Jupiter in Cancer. It's like, okay, what is my protective shell of my soul in the ocean of being? You know, becomes something really developmental while Jupiter's in Cancer. And so there is a tremendous opportunity for self-cultivation in that context. And you know, I don't know, like I fall in the lines of self-cultivation is the only real task.
And care. One aspect of cancer is care, caring.
Mm,
And
mm,
with cancer energy, too much care is control. So we want to be able to step back and look and be in that energy, and not control, but to have care, for self-care. And self-care is always going to reflect kind of like what you're describing now. It takes, how did you say it? You said the word that there's only personal growth, or personal, how did you put it?
self-cultivation. Yeah.
Self-cultivation. But self-cultivation is in itself cultivation of everything in your environment, because how
Right.
you treat
Yeah.
yourself is how you treat others, you know.
Mm, yeah. 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 And I mean, that's that reaches into that bodhisattva quality um, of, of nurturing the world around you, because that is part of the Cancer quality, just as you said. It's like, but in order to do that, I had a client just the other day, like totally exhaust themselves mentally and physically nurturing others, and then can't actually do it anymore. Then creates a wreck because what one has to do is nurture oneself so you can nurture others, protect oneself so you can care for others. And that's part of the meditation on Cancer. The meditation Jupiter and Cancer is like, well, Jupiter is expanding, but the Cancer is like nurturing and protecting. So expanding our capacity to nurture, protect, and care for ourselves becomes very important.
Another example of that is like I can't be present with you right now in this video and hear what you're saying and respond to it if I did not make time for myself to sit with however I'm feeling in silence and darkness and be with it every day
Hmm.
so that
Hmm.
I can process the day and let the energies of the day fall away and not stay stuck in my head, but to slowly just leave energetically so that I can be present the next day and
Hmm.
respond, as a generator, we're both generators here, to respond to what's being said or communicated or whatever the world presents me with.
Hmm.
Only then can I act and manifest forth.
So does that key or and trigger into human design and the relationship of human design to Jupiter and turn Cancer?
Jupiter has been for a month or so now in gate 15 because the gates in human design, when they're on the cusp, they border both the the preceding sign and the forthcoming sign. So we've already been in gate 15, which is where it's going to be for the rest of the month and for a little while. And that's the first gate of Cancer in human design, which is the end of Gemini, cusp. So that particular energy embodies a very expansive love of humanity and care. It really does. It's a very nurturing, love expressed gate, but it also symbolizes extremes. And these extremes are extreme gestures of expansion and love and wanting to contain what's outside in itself.
Hmm.
In a sense, it's like, a big grimace, right? Or trying to hug you, bring you in, to itself. So it's, a little scary in a sense of it can feel like too much too quick, like you were describing. So all of what we're describing in Jupiter and Cancer fits with the gates because these gates, they're just degrees of Cancer. It's just Cancer split up into five different representative frequencies and energies, all of which express Cancer in some way. So
Hmm.
gate 15 does, it does. It expresses the love. It expresses the love of all or the chosen all, right? It's the nuance of what that of that Jupiter's geometry. The geometry exists. Human design is is the mandala, which is still the horoscope, you know what I mean? The houses is still the same thing, just a different frame, you know? So yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Beautiful, brilliant, brilliant.
Should we
Yeah.
look? Do we have time? Do you have time? Should we look at a chart real quick? How you feeling?
Sure. Yeah. Let's just
Okay.
really quickly spin through it. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll start with the astrology chart. Dorje said June 10th. I went ahead and looked for it exact and found it somewhere around 4 or 5 on the day before on June 9th.
Yes. Excellent.
So I'll start us off and I'll let Dorje take over. So Scorpio ascendant doing whole sign. This is Washington, D.C. It's June 9th, about 5:30 p.m. We got Scorpio ascendant. We have some asteroids.
I can't see the chart.
Oh, is it showing or no?
It's not showing for me.
Oh, that's strange. Let me try it again. I'm gonna stop and I'll share again. Okay, how about now?
Yeah. Yep. There it is.
I'm just gonna make it a little bigger so you could see it. So give me a sec. I'm gonna do that. Okay, you go ahead and start us off then.
Oh yeah. So like from my perspective, I guess you do. Well, what is this Jupiter ingress? Is Jupiter ingress occurring with Jupiter and Mercury conjunct? So there's a lot of conversation over the following year about what it is to take care of other people versus what it is to take care of your own people. I can see that being a very dominant theme within a mundane reality, along with, well, when it ingresses and in the US and you have Mars and Mercury, the midheaven conjunct. Oh, this is kind of like nasty from the perspective of warfare. Um, this is an angry US or an angry leader or an angry ruler, especially with that Mars. What's that? Ooh, square Uranus, an angry leader acting out in unpredictable ways
Square
while
our
the
goal. Square
nation
our goal as well. Yeah,
Square
no,
up, go,
thank you.
yeah. While the nation is like, what is that to protect people? Having this dialogue about who are we and who do we protect? Who do we exclude? So that's very strong. And while that's going on, I mean, you've also got the moon just coming off of a opposition to Uranus and opposition to Mars in Sagittarius. So then this itself has this kind of like, well, maybe that's good with the moon there. Maybe in the end, there's this philosophical sense that we come to this place of we care for and we nurture people because that is the right thing to do. But there's a whole dialogue there, and that is like that's also out of sign. So it is very possible that the ideals are not matching the actions over the year. Like one thing is said, but another thing is done. Now, one thing I'd like to note is that when Neptune was last in the early Aries and Uranus was last in Gemini, the US was embroiled in a civil war. So that, those two planets are having a repeat signature. A lot of divisiveness may be coming down the pipeline. People be careful.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot right there. Anything else you want to add about, wow, that's a lot of tension on the geopolitical. And this is soon. This is what, in a week?
Yeah, this was in a week. Oh, look
And
at that. There's a yacht, though. Is that a yacht? Yeah, there's a yacht.
yeah, there's a yacht in there. And
Yeah, there's a yacht.
Moon oppose Uranus. This does not feel good.
No, no. Well, I mean, so with the yacht, then that Uranus is the key, right?
Yeah, because it's the opposition within the, yeah, within that square there, the square and the opposition. Yeah. Yeah, so the key then is to whatever radical hits come your way, whatever, all of a sudden you have this new idea or this new way of dealing with this issue. Pay attention to ideas as they come in.
Yes, I think so. Like, be ready to pivot. Like, be flexible.
Be
Be
ready to
ready to
pivot.
pivot.
Yeah,
Be ready to like hop on the next train
yeah.
because that train you're on might be crashing. So hop on the next train. Yeah,
And
and what's that?
no, go ahead, go ahead.
I like seeing that yacht is between Venus and Jupiter sextile. I think and Mercury sextile with the moon. I think that's that's a really light. That's a really like okay. You should be able to intuit and to know the right thing to do, and you should be grounded for whatever the challenges that are coming up with that Uranus Mars square are. I mean, obviously, it takes a certain amount of good fortune and agency to be someone who can uh, maneuver out of one situation into another. Not everybody has that option in this world. But for those of us who do, like you should be able to know the right way to walk and whatever that Uranus Mars square throws at you
You're
while Jupiter's ingressing.
Uranus in the last degrees of Taurus, it makes me think of Mount Etna. Was it Mount Etna in Italy? It's just
Yes, yeah, Mount
lava
Vesuvius.
again. Mount Vesuvius, yeah, Mount Vesuvius, yeah. It just makes me feel like it being in the last degrees of Taurus, like it's like, I'm almost in Gemini. I'm going back into the mind, right? I'm from fucking with the earth, and causing quakes and this and
Hmm.
that and
Hmm.
rumbling. I think there's going to be a lot more of that, a lot
Mm.
more of that prior to going into Gemini, and that's July 8th that Uranus goes into Gemini. So more Earth disasters. This is kind of a year for shakeups, and breakups with the Earth.
Yeah.
And
Well, now that you say that, I'm thinking about how a couple days ago, whoever Trump put in charge of FEMA was asked by some FEMA members, about hurricane season and what the plan was, and he was like, "I didn't know the U.S. had a hurricane season." And I'm looking at this. I'm looking Jupiter in Cancer and Uranus in Gemini, July, August, September. You better figure out we're going to have a hurricane season out of that. Like those are some big storms. Those are
plus
some
the
big storms.
eclipses. The eclipses in September. That first eclipse in September, that looks like some possible, serious um, weather afflictions for us, some.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Worldwide. I mean, I would say that the typhoons in Asia this year are going to be just off the mark. In the U.S., hurricane season would be very surprised if we didn't get a couple like bowling balls smashing through. Last year was a little difficult. North Carolina got hit hard. They're still recovering.
Well, they got
But
hit over and over again, right? I mean, it wasn't just,
yeah,
you know,
but
Tennessee got hit too.
that combination, Uranus, the god of storms in Gemini, wind. Ooh.
Yeah, yeah, well said. Well said. Looking at that, Uranus is going to cause some winds because it's like all the other outer planets. It's moving into everything's in air and fire.
Yep.
Everything's
Yeah.
moving into air and fire. And so it's like tumultuous hurricanes, and tornadoes and just storms of the air. I think people have been talking about fog too, and just weird stuff that has to do with the air, right?
Mm,
Especially
mm,
with Pluto and Aquarius, poisoning the air. The air is
mm.
poisoned. We've known this for
Ooh.
some time though, with engineering, weather engineering, and all this stuff. But
Mm.
the chart here's the human design for June 15th. So it's around both the Jupiter squaring Neptune and Saturn. And in this chart, we have only one channel active, but it's a really powerful channel. This is the 1222. So you have the gate of grace
Hmm.
there with the gate of speaking of pausing and only speaking when it's the correct time to speak. And really, this whole channel is about only acting when it's the correct time to act and trusting that. People who
Hmm.
have this channel, they need to do what they feel no matter what,
Hmm. Yep.
regardless of plans, regardless of expectations. They are set to do what they feel no matter what. This is a manifesting channel. Anyone with this channel would be a manifester in human design
Hmm. Hmm.
automatically. And they could be a manifesting generator, but definitely a manifester. And this channel is that channel of, like you've been saying, like this is, if there are emergencies, this is the need to come into your body and go, oh, I got to pivot. Oh, I got to move this way now. Oh, it's planning to
Yep.
go left, but it's time to take a right, you know? All right, man.
Hey, you're back.
The video paused. I guess Uranus struck back.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
That's fucked up.
Yeah.
So we're back. We're back. I took the video off the screen because it was we were done. We were done. That was just
We're
that.
done. We're good. Yeah.
All right, man. Thanks so much. It's great having you. Great having us, rather. I don't have you, you have me. It's, it's our thing.
Yeah, no, great conversation. I always enjoy it. Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Thanks so much for viewing. Check out Dorje's channel at heartastrology.com. He said he's going to do readings this year and he's going to add in like your Jupiter, like what's happening with your Jupiter in Cancer, what it's going to bring you. He's going to add it into the reading. So he does great astrology readings. Get a reading from him if you
Yeah.
feel it. And yeah, we'll leave it at that. Thanks so much, you guys. Take care.
Thank you, Mario.